We're back. End of another week. Heading into another game day. Notre Dame and Duke. It's IB Countdown to Kickoff. I'm Sean Stiers with Vince Dario and Jesse Stiers. Guys, let's see if we can tick off another fan base this week. What do you say?
Oh, is that the goal? Because
that's Vince's job.
Pretty good.
We don't even make it a goal, but we've managed to do it just about every, at least the last few weeks anyway.
That is true. NC State and Ohio State are obviously top the list. I don't think we ticked off any Tennessee State fans, at least not to my knowledge.
True.
We
actually had a Tennessee State viewer or two. I remember the week of the Tennessee State game.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
I think they pretty much accepted their fate.
They accepted the big old paycheck.
These other, at least we don't have to talk about any perceived home field advantage when you've got a stadium that seats 40,000 like Duke does this week. It's not going to be part of the conversation. So
tell that to Clemson, Sean Stiers.
True. Well, the question for Notre Dame, of course, this week after we've been through and beat it all up is, can they recoup after not only a heartbreaking loss to Ohio State, but a loss that was so self-inflicted with mistakes and strategy at the end of the game? What do you guys think?
I love when Vince gives me the little point and he's like,
I know
what?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't you go so much? No, Notre Dame can definitely recoup from the Ohio State loss, because I think what you have to do as a team is you have to focus on everything but the last 4 minutes of the game and everything that you did well. Because if you throw away those last 4 minutes, it was a tremendous football game. And while Notre Dame didn't accomplish as much as they wanted to on offense, aka not finishing drives, I still think that they did a tremendous job on defense and shutting down one of the best wide receiver cores in the country. And so you have to take all the positive things that you did and then really just, focus on how do we finish and how do we get better. And I think that having that kind of vengeance in your mouth there, that, that wanting to take it to an opponent is something that they should have. You should have a fire for, the letdown that was last week and allow it to kind of fuel you going forward.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that this program is in a pretty good spot. And, we're going to talk more about it as we, preview this game specifically. But I expect big things this week, to be honest with you.
Same.
And, we're gonna see where this program is. We're gonna see where Marcus Freeman is. We're gonna see if he's learned from his mistakes, in the past coming off of big games. We're gonna learn a lot about this team and this program when this ball gets kicked off Saturday night. I mean, I really do believe that. And I also believe that what we will learn is that they're in a great place. That's what I believe is about to happen.
Yeah, and I think, right before you go, I think this week is an ultimate test of toughness for Notre Dame. How do they respond and how tough are they, right? Because it's one thing to lose a close game, but it's another thing to kind of sit in your sorrow and et cetera. It's how they respond. And I think that's the biggest thing that comes back from this team is how tough are they in this game against Duke.
I think it's amazing that when you look at last week's game, they only punted twice. They just couldn't finish some drives. They were in, you miss a field goal. You got to hit that field goal, obviously. But they were in field goal range another time. They couldn't convert a 4th and 1. And then, of course, they had another 4th and 1 where they were getting close to field goal range. No turnovers last week. And again, very few penalties after we had seen penalties start to pop, kind of rear their head a couple of weeks before that. So there were really just so many good things you could look at. Unfortunately, they didn't finish. And when you look at, I guess to answer the question, you guys answer the question, and I agree with you that I think they will be able to bounce back. And this is a test of toughness, really a test of mental toughness, I think. And
yes,
I think that they have managed to respond. A lot of people want to draw the comparison to, well, you didn't respond after Ohio State last year. You lost to Marshall last year. I feel like it's a completely different set of circumstances because there was so much on the beginning of the season, and it happened to be Marcus Freeman's alma mater and really kicking off his era and all these different things. I just feel like program's in a different place a little bit more than a year down the road since then.
I feel like last year's Ohio State game was Ohio State hangover. This week it's this year it's Ohio State vengeance a little bit more so.
I think so.
Yep.
There was plenty of blame, of course, to go around after the game last week, both sides of the ball in that last 4 minutes. I found it interesting because both coordinators, Gerad Parker and Al Golden, spoke with the media earlier this week. And in response to questions about how they called things at the end of the game, their basic response was, the gist was, well, we just needed to execute better. It wasn't, I needed to call it differently. Needed to execute better. Vince, I'll start with you on this one. Milky White, what do you think about that?
So
is it concerning to you?
They were in favor of execution. Is that where you?
We're gonna steal Brian Kelly's joke.
I mean, look, I guess where I fall on this whole thing is and the reason I brought that up was because if Brian Kelly said those things, I would be hammering him. And so I have to hammer these guys because
that's a great way to look at it. Like, what would we say? Like in any response, what would we say if BK said that? Right?
I would hammer him about that response. I would. Now, I would agree with Gerad Parker, except for the call of with the delayed run. You know what I mean? Like they do have to execute better, except for that play right there, because that's a call. That's not an execution situation, right? So I would have issue with that. But for Al Golden, it's even worse because I felt like it wasn't an execute. Yes, DJ Brown dropped the interception. Yes, there were a couple misses here and there. It's not an execution situation. It was a strategy and a play call situation.
Yeah.
So maybe if he said, I need to execute the play calls better, then I would be more in favor of what he has to say. But he can't lay it all out on the players in this case. He just can't. He can't. So I would hammer Brian Kelly. So I got to hammer these guys. No, it's not just an execution problem. It's more than that. It's bigger.
I'm going to take BK out of this equation. I'm just going to hammer both of these guys because they deserve to be hammered. It's not an execution thing. It's you need to put your team in the best scenario play call wise in order for them to execute. And that's not what happened on that last drive for Notre Dame after they got those 2 first downs. Those play calls did just not match the situation that was at hand, in my opinion. And so it's one thing, the players did not execute the play to the best of their ability, sure, but those plays shouldn't have even been run in the first place. And so that's where I drop the blame in this situation, because you're not putting your team in the best situation to succeed in that moment by calling those play calls. And that's simply what it comes down to, execution or not. It's not at that point in the game. It's not on your players. It's on what are you calling to get this game over with or to seal this game up.
And
then I'd go so even further to say with Al Golden on defense is Al Golden. There's 2 things. Al Golden didn't know when he wanted to blitz and when he wanted to play it more safe, and that caught up to him. And then the other thing to me is, in terms of execution, you got to have a wall at the 5-yard line. Those players, their heels do not need to be on the heel of the end zone, because by that point it's too late. You need to be at the 5-yard line. Because you can get a first down,
which we saw.
Exactly. And so that to me is just, again, not putting your players in the best position, because they executed what Golden asked them to do. It's just Ohio State executed better and found the plays to go on and win the game. And so I don't think it's execution on both sides of the ball. I think it's both coordinators didn't call things to put their players in the best situation.
And the 2 offensive plays that you talked about, the 2 back with the slow developing that Tuiamolau ended up blowing up, and then of course the screen pass, both of those plays in succession run to the same side into the boundary. So you've got less space to work with over there. And you've got Ohio State's best defensive player, who granted hadn't had a great game to that point, but he's still their best defensive player. And on back-to-back plays with the game on the line, he stepped up and made the play. You would think that, if you were going to call something, at the very least, there would have been a check that's like, okay, if 44 is there, we want to go the opposite side of 44. in this instance, right? But like that wasn't in place either. So I think it goes much beyond execution. It was the way things were called, and it was even worse, I thought, without Golden, that he just kept going back to, well, he did say, we've got to coach it better or whatever. It's not like you're going to coach it in the middle of the game. There needed to be better calls in those situations, because they did so well defensively 95% of the time. It was just a handful of crucial plays that did them in. And I mean, offensively, obviously they didn't score a lot, but you do have to give some credit to the Ohio State defense as well. And again, Notre Dame moved the ball. They just didn't finish drives when they needed to as well, not just that final drive. But let me ask you this. Besides preventing Ohio State, like throw out the final touchdown, obviously. If you could change that, everyone would change that. If you could change one thing that happened during the game, what would it be?
I would change the fact that Sam Hartman first down got overturned. I know it was early in the game, but I think that's a crucial series for Notre Dame, and I think it sets the tone early. I'm not guaranteeing that they're getting points, but there's a better chance of them getting points early, and I think I think it changes a little bit of the trajectory in some way throughout the rest of the game. I think not only does it, I think even if they don't give points, I think it gives them a bit more of a confidence, right? Like they're early on in the game as a unit, because they pick up a big first down. And then we just kept seeing struggle after struggle on those short down situations throughout the game. I just feel like if you get that first one over with and accomplished, you have more confidence about what you can do going forward. So that's the play that I think I would take back and change, is that phantom review that all of a sudden they had enough evidence to overturn it.
No reason it should have been overturned. There was not enough evidence to overturn.
That's actually a really good call, Jess, and probably not one that most people would pick because it's so early in the game. But I agree with you. That puts the ball at the 17-yard line with a fresh set of downs. Like they're gonna score there. Like I say what you want to about Spencer Schrader. Let's say that the next three plays they don't get a first down, and you're on the 15-yard line. That's a 30-yard field goal. Like
you're talking about 34-yard field goal.
Yeah, I mean that's a chip shot. Like 90%.
And it sets up his confidence too for the rest of the game potentially.
100% agree. And so, yeah, that's a really, really good one, and probably trumps anything that I would come up with. But off the top of my head,
look, let's be honest though. If Schrader either hits that first field goal or they convert that first down like you're talking about, and all they needed is a field goal, they win the game. If they get points at any other point during the game, they win the game. That's what it comes down to.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I'll take the obvious one just because I can, and I'll take the DJ Brown not caught interception because that ends the game. Obviously, that would be my next one because that's the easiest thing because it doesn't involve anybody else. It just involves one guy. Yeah. Right. I would love to say the screen pass. Like I would love to say that one because I hate to say it, but it all boils down to that one play. If it hits, Gerad Parker's a friggin' genius, and he's a genius. That's the outcome. Like, oh man, Gerad Parker's such a great offensive coordinator. What stones he had to call that play, the whole thing, right? And it doesn't hit, it gets knocked down, and they should never even have hired him. You know what I mean? Like one play has completely colored who Gerad Parker is as an offensive coordinator.
And then 10 men on the field never happens. And the whole thing.
And the defense only gives up 10 points and Al Golden is a genius. You know what I mean? Like the narrative is so
they're all dining like kings this week.
Oh man. The narrative is so different for both sides of the ball and for this program.
The 4th and 1 is where I was leaning. Really both of the 4th and 1s, but I think especially but here's what I don't get, because they ended up Hartman had to scramble where they're trying to convert 4th and 1 on the one that gets overturned, and then he tried. They obviously try to sneak him around the end. Like the Eagles have the whole tush push is what I don't like the name, but they call it, the thing with Jalen Hurts where they line everybody up and
I call it a rugby scrum.
Yeah, I mean, but it very rarely fails. Notre Dame has Mitchapalooza. I mean, you can't tell me that if you put Mitchell Evans behind center and then you get like Audric Estime and Davis Sherwood or even like a defensive lineman or somebody behind him to push him forward, you can't tell me they're not going to convert 4th and 1 95% of the time.
You would think.
Why don't they have a better option than the 2 plays that we saw on 4th and 1? I think that's the biggest thing.
Well, and I don't think it was called for Hartman to go around the edge. I think
no, but that's what I'm saying. They were also, it was supposed to be a pass play, right? Like
that. Oh, no. I meant the sneak.
The sneak.
Where he tried to kind of, I thought he tried to go up the middle and then it wasn't there. And so he tried to go around the edge. You know what I mean? No, obviously the other one was a scramble. On that one, again, hindsight's 20/20, but I would have loved for him to stick his right foot in the ground and not go out of bounds, but stick your right foot in the ground and just kind of go forward. I think he gets it no problem. Then, even if he goes into the chest of the defender with the momentum and everything, I still feel like he picks up that first down as opposed to doing the whole run out of bounds, try to stick the ball out thing, even though he didn't even do that.
Well, I agree. But again, like if you look at the replay, there's nothing on replay that shows they should have overturned that first down.
Absolutely agree with you. I would just, even the chance of a review, you want to take it off the table. You know what I mean? And I feel like if he stays in bounds and just kind of lowers his shoulder, now people are going to be like, well, you don't want Sam Hartman to get hurt, which I get. But if he stays in bounds, lowers his shoulder, he gets that first down. That's honestly, and I never thought these words would come out of my mouth. That's where I miss Ian Book. He would have done that. He would have tried to run the guy over. Then he would have gotten the first down.
True. It's true. I mean, Tyler Buckner might have as well, but then Buckner might have ended up separating his shoulder.
He might have gotten hurt.
That's right.
Ian Book wouldn't have gotten hurt, man. He was an Iron Man. Like, he played a lot of football, you know what I mean? But he lowers his shoulder in that particular regard. At that point, I take him out and put Sam Hartman back in. But that's one play I would like to have him in.
See, this is where I think Notre Dame not misses, but like, you know, Buckner, I think, squandered an opportunity. I think there would have been packages for him in instances like this.
That's a solid call, Jesse. Yeah.
Who's the average player we'd be talking about right now if they had pulled it off?
Well, I'll just say, because I said DJ Brown was going to catch an interception, I'll go with DJ Brown. He's the savior. He's the savior of the game. Yeah. You know, he's the one that got the defense to make that final stop that they never have done.
I think Javonte Jean-Baptiste, he had a great game playing against his old team. I think he's a nominee. I'm sorry.
No, defensively,
you guys always steal mine, so I wanted to sneak something in first.
Smart.
Offensively, I would say the offensive line, because it wouldn't have been. Audric didn't have big enough a game for me. I thought Jeremiah Love was more potent than Audric Estime was in that game.
If they would have played the last series right, we'd be talking about him.
That's what I'm saying. So Notre Dame has to win the game, and you're feeding Audric Estime that entire drive until the clock says 0.
He didn't do enough for me. I think the offensive
line. You've got to hand the ball to him. We said this week. Yeah, but you've got to hand the ball to him at least one more time after that 11-yard run. I'm not disagreeing with that.
I'm saying that they, as a unit, ran for over 200 yards at that point. And I would say, with a multitude of running backs, no one stood out. I would give more praise to the offensive line, because no one running back stood out to me, and Jeremiah Love was the reason why they had success in the second half running the ball. And so, like, that's where I'm at. No one stood out to me offensively, and I think
I was going to say Mitchell Evans, because
with all the catches, and he was the leading receiver.
He had 4 catches for 115 yards in that game, and of course the acrobatic.
The nice catches. That's a good point. Yeah. But I'm going to be honest with you. I was underwhelmed by Sam Hartman. I thought he didn't play as good of a game as he needed to as well. I was not happy with his performance coming out of that game. I thought him being more experienced and being around the block more, he should have offered more to the table in terms of production wise. But that's just me.
Evans actually had 7 for 75. I don't know why I had 4 for 115 on the mind, but 7 for 175 or 7 for 75 is still a pretty good day that he had out there, especially considering he missed the previous
and the
week.
Offensive line gave up no sacks. So that also plays into it.
You know, we talked about the question Hartman got after the game this week. And I don't think in any way, shape, or form the loss is on him.
No.
But he also didn't have his best
He didn't do enough to separate himself and give them like that. He just played average. And in that game, compared to who he was going against as the other quarterback, McCord, he's got to be head and shoulders better. Not even head, he just needs to be better. And I felt like they were equal quarterbacks in that game. And that's the part where I felt like Sam Hartman underperformed because of it being McCord's fourth game and Sam Hartman's like 700th game, is that the experience didn't really show a factor enough, in my opinion.
I mean, I thought when McCord was, doing a Drew Pine impersonation on the first two plays of their final drive, I thought, man, this thing is going to be over quick. Notre Dame's going to get the ball right back, and this game is going to be over. But to McCord's credit,
McCord made plays when it counted. Like,
right.
I wouldn't say that he was head and shoulders.
He was not great
Sam
throughout,
Hartman.
but I mean, obviously they don't win
21
that game
of 37. Like, he's a 57% passer, right? Like, and no touchdowns in that game. So, I mean, he made plays on that final drive with some help from Notre Dame's defense, but he made plays when it mattered, right? So, right. I mean, I give him credit. I'm not going to say he played better than Sam Hartman because Sam Hartman did engineer that 75 or 96-yard touchdown drive to put him up as well. But
I just didn't feel like the gap was big enough. I thought Sam Hartman needed to do more for me.
That's fair, but the way they were playing it, they were kind of taking Sam Hartman out of the game, which is why they were so successful running the ball.
Yep.
So I asked both of you guys this on different shows this week.
Oh, you rascal.
And so I'm going to bring it up with all three of us here. If Marcus Freeman, a lot of people obviously down on Marcus Freeman, and things went from, hey, we love Marcus Freeman, to there were a lot of people who turned on Marcus Freeman.
It's crazy.
Pretty quickly. If his learning curve as a still relatively inexperienced young head coach goes from losing to Marshall and Stanford last year to a 3-point loss due to some shaky decisions to a fourth-ranked Ohio State team in year 2, can you live with that? In other words, 9-3 last year, 2 really bad losses to, again, those 2 teams, to maybe 11-1, 10-2 this year, if that's what it ends up, with the losses to Ohio State, maybe USC or Clemson. Can you live with that kind of growth curve for Marcus Freeman?
Vince, I hated this question earlier in the week, and I hate it even more now because I feel like there's not a right answer, and I lean towards both sides, to be honest with you. I feel like I'm this side, and I feel like that's what I'm on. I am on the fence for this question, but
I'm not saying, and I'm not saying that the way they lost to Ohio State is acceptable. I'm just saying, if
you're going more big picture.
Big picture, you had 2 brutal losses last year to teams you shouldn't have lost to. You're battling in there with the good teams, and unfortunately, maybe some inexperience cost them along the way.
What makes this hard to me is at the end of the day, you got to win. Like I don't take any moral victories on if it's a loss, if it's an embarrassing loss to Stanford, or if it's a blunder, a coaching blunder in the last 4 minutes and a loss to Ohio State. It's almost like the opponent doesn't really matter to me. And I know that's like, it's obviously you'd rather lose to Ohio State in a 3-point game than lose to Marshall at home. Like those are 2 completely different losses. And yes, Marcus Freeman has shown a ton of growth from that Marshall loss to this Ohio State loss, but he still hasn't finished it. That's the issue for me and Marcus Freeman, is that he doesn't know how to finish games still quite yet. And so like that's still the common denominator, who no matter who the opponent is you're not finishing games against Marshall, you're not finishing games against Ohio State. And so like that's why the obvious answer is like, yeah, he's grown and he's gotten better, but at the end of the day, it comes down to wins and losses no matter who it is. And so I don't know. I still lean towards I haven't quite seen enough yet, because he's beaten the teams that he's supposed to beat, and there haven't been relatively good teams. And so once we gear up to more of these, the stretch that we're on, I think that'll give me more so of an answer about Marcus Freeman. But right now, I'm leaning towards no. Like I still haven't seen enough out of Marcus Freeman.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second. he didn't. The point of the question is he didn't beat the teams he was supposed to beat last year, and now he is.
Right.
Right. Jesse.
That's exactly the point of the question. So now you're at least beating the teams that you're supposed to beat, which you didn't do last year, which his predecessor did, which is why they were able to rack up all those wins over that 5-year period. But now you're losing a close game to a really good team.
And his predecessor made a living, a 12-year living at Notre Dame, losing to top 10 teams. And there was
mopping up the rest of them.
And there was a big chunk of the fan base that was cool with that. So are we comparing Marcus Freeman as a second-year head coach? Are we comparing him against Brian Kelly? What are we comparing him to? You know,
I think it's him versus him.
Okay. So tremendous growth from year 1 to year 2. But I also think that I'm giving Jesse a hard time here, but I also think this question, I think you need to put it in a sack until the end of the season, and we see
and make sure that actually plays out that way.
Because if he takes this team and they end up the rest of the way undefeated and they go 11-1, I think we can all say, okay, we'll take
100%.
Well, but then the conversation changes, because now, did you just make the college football playoff? Did you just miss out on the college football
That's what I'm saying. When the season is over,
missed out. Like if you end up team 5 or 6 in a 4-team playoff at the end of the season, and the one loss ends up being this, then I think people are going to be ticked off all over again.
Well, he still has a shot at winning a New Year's Six Bowl, which they haven't done in 30 years.
True.
So there's still things on the table to accomplish that have yet to be accomplished as a head coach at Notre Dame. So there's still stuff on the table. You know what I mean? Now, I still think an 11-1 team, obviously barring whatever happens, they got a good shot. They're within screaming distance of making it into the playoff. And then, of course, we have the conversation of, can you be competitive in a playoff game? Can you win that playoff game? You know, that whole thing. But I think this question specifically, yes, I can live with it for now. Am I disappointed? Yes. But can I live with it? Yes, I can live with it, because I think there's so much football left on the table for him to prove himself.
See, me too, because you look at most head coaches, like look at Mike Elko and where he went. He got the Duke job, and there's not a whole lot of scrutiny on Mike Elko at Duke. Like, he had just a little bit worse than the same record that Marcus Freeman had last year. Everyone was excited about that at Duke. You look at a guy like Nick Saban, started at Toledo. Nobody cared about what he did at Toledo. He got to make his mistakes at Toledo, and to some extent at Michigan State before he moved on to LSU and Alabama. Brian Kelly, like we've talked about, Grand Valley State, Central Michigan, Cincinnati before he got here. So the spotlight is a lot brighter on Marcus Freeman and every little mistake that he makes. And I think that you do still have to accept the fact that there are going to be some bumps early on, because you've been a head coach before, Vince. I've been a head coach. Jesse has obviously played a lot of sports. The bottom line with coaching is, like, when you're an assistant coach, you're there, but you don't actually have to make the decisions. Maybe sometimes you even second guess your head coach, but you don't have to be the one. You don't have to be the one who's actually wearing the hat and making the decisions in those 35-second intervals, you know? And it's a lot different when you're the one whose responsibility it is for all those decisions. And again, when the spotlight is greater and everything else. So I think we've got to accept that there are going to be some growing pains along the way, because you don't get to make those decisions until you're the guy making those decisions. Essentially, everything that he encounters that those other guys like Saban and Kelly and whoever, you know, Jim Tressel, his mentor when he was at Youngstown State, you know, like, they got to make them in places where it wasn't nearly as big a deal when you make those mistakes the first time. And they still made mistakes later on. But
I was a career assistant coach for a long time, decade and a half. And I was the king the king of second guessing my head coach. All right. So yeah, man, you absolutely,
especially a particular one.
Well, we've talked about that before, by the way.
Uh-huh.
Somebody was watching the show, by the way, the other night and talked to me today about that particular game and that the Adams game against Penn and how they were all scared crapless and blah, 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 blah. So I thought that was fun.
You're talking about
Adams Penn when they almost beat them and all that stuff, and the nasty weather, etc. But no, look, you're absolutely right. There's no substitute for being the head coach who, with the buck stops here and all that, whatever cliche that you want to use. The assistant coach always knows best, right? That's why the backup quarterback is always the most popular guy on campus, right? That's why, whatever you want to talk about. It's way different, man, when you're in the catbird seat. It is way different when you're pulling the strings and making all the calls, and you second guess yourself a lot. But what I do like about Marcus Freeman, and he's been doing this since he was a coordinator, is that he is very retrospective. Like, he actually does self-scout himself in every aspect of how he does his job. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. And that's why I am still in his corner and will be for the foreseeable future.
Yep. So now it's on to Duke and the 29-game ACC regular season winning streak is back on the line. We're going to see ACC teams in back-to-back weeks, the stretch of 4 straight primetime games that everyone's excited about.
Boo.
Last time, Duke's going to be hosting College Game Day, of course. Last time they hosted a game between 2 ranked teams all the way back in 1994, almost 30 years since Duke has been in this position. So I think there's going to be kind of a lot of, you talk about spotlight and pressure and stuff. I think there's going to be a lot on Duke in this game, a heck of a lot more on Duke hosting this game than if it was here at Notre Dame, for example. So, I think that's actually advantage Notre Dame. And college football writer Andy Staples from On3, he used to write for The Athletic. He's at On3 now. He spent some time in town here at Notre Dame. He was at the game Saturday. He stuck around at least through Monday. I know he was at the Marcus Freeman's press conference and got some one-on-one time with both Marcus Freeman and Audric Estime. But Staples said this week, this is not the week they want to be playing Notre Dame, referring to Duke. They are bounced back and they're pissed, referring to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is bounced back and pissed. And, so there was some concern, I think, prior to the Ohio State game from the Notre Dame perspective that maybe the Irish could overlook Duke to some extent. Do you think that the result of last week changes all that?
I think that it's not a trap game anymore, to be honest with you. You and I sparred back and forth about what a trap game is and all of those different things, and that was fun. But, this would be considered one of those because they do have an opportunity to lose this game. It's on the road. This is a ranked team. All of those different things. There's hype around it, blah, blah, blah. It's a trap game, right? The difference for me is this team has clearly adopted the attitude of Marcus Freeman, because I guarantee you there's nobody more pissed off in the Goog than Marcus Freeman. And therefore now his team is pissed off and is going to take Duke to the friggin' woodshed, man. That's what's about to happen. I completely agree with this comment. And if he's been kind of in the Goog and around the guys, I'm sure he's got a better sense of what it's like in there and around them. That's what I anticipated, to be perfectly honest with you. What he said is what I thought was going to happen. And so I love it. That tells me this team is where I want them to be.
Yeah, so Vince hit on a lot of good points there. I do think that the loss to Ohio State changes a lot of things for this week because, before the season even started, the whole talk was this is a trap game, this is a trap game, this is a trap game. That I don't know if you guys saw it. Duke football, I think a couple of days ago, it might have been Thursday or maybe Friday morning. I saw it. They tweeted out a picture of it was like an animated picture of a leprechaun, and it was a trap being held over it. And it's so are you guys admitting that this is a trap game and you guys are the inferior opponent to Notre Dame. I thought that was just
right.
kind of funny, right? And so
I thought it was, but like, in no way is this a trap game anymore.
Yeah, this game is completely
Not anymore.
shifted out of trap game realm, I guess is what I was getting to. And it's, I think that it's a credit to the head coach if that someone completely outside of the program can be hanging out, being around campus and can sense that, because that means you've gotten your players to move on and you've gotten them to refocus on wanting to get rid of that distasteful, the lingering taste in their mouth by going out and handling business how they're supposed to and making an even louder statement this week, because I think it says more about the character of your team on how you respond or how you get up from the mat after getting knocked down.
Yeah.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton, for them to keep calling this a trap game. We'll see how it plays out.
I'm holding back some predictions right now, but it is I just
maybe Ken Jeong, the guest picker, will go out on Pat McAfee's show.
Is he the guest picker?
He is.
Okay.
Maybe he'll be on the Pat McAfee show on Friday, and he'll say something to incense Marcus Freeman. Yeah, I don't know.
I can't wait for your rapid fire question concerning that particular topic, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just if they beat Ohio State, it's the biggest regular season win, since whatever, which game you want to compare it to. We talked about it last week, and people don't listen closely enough to understand analogies and stuff like that. Sometimes I'm looking at you Bucknuts fans, but I just feel like if they win that game, they're probably floating on the clouds a little bit, and maybe it takes a while to get them kind of grounded into this week and get them refocused, just like the week before against Central Michigan. Maybe their focus for a while wasn't in the right place. So I think that they're definitely going to be locked in and focused, and as Andy Staples said, pissed off. And this is not the week I don't think that you want to be playing Notre Dame. I completely agree with what he said.
It was trap. It's not a trap. This is going to be a bloodbath. It's what it's going to be. I'm sorry. I know Duke has done some really good things this season, and we're going to get into our predictions a little bit later.
They're just not nearly as dynamic.
It's just if Notre Dame's firing on all cylinders, which I anticipate them doing, this is going to be over before it starts.
Yep. So Duke, you got former Notre Dame defensive coordinator Mike Elko, second year as head coach. They're built on defense. They've got the number 47 pass efficiency defense in the nation, number 2 red zone defense in the nation, number 16 total defense. They allow 276 yards a game. Forced 8 turnovers, which is tied for number 20. Turnover margin, they are tied for 9th at +5. They were +16 last year. But they also have the number 68 run defense, allowing 133 yards per game going in. It's interesting. They've won the turnover battle in 12 of the 17 games with Mike Elko as head coach, and they are 10-2 in those games. So importance of taking care of the ball kind of takes on, I think, another level this week, especially like when you look at the Clemson game specifically. But I think really when you look at, again, the way Duke is operated, their offense, as Jesse alluded to, and we're going to talk to specifically here in a minute, not the most dynamic outside of the quarterback, Riley Leonard, but the defense generally puts them in very good field position with the turnovers they're able to create. They do a lot, like, again, look at the Clemson game. A lot of what Clemson did was self-inflicted, but Duke took advantage of it, and that's how they were able to win that game by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, so in terms of Duke's defense, I think the number one thing to focus on is how assignment sound they are and how they do things to get an advantage before the ball is even snapped. I think they are very good at looking at your alignments, looking at splits, and kind of getting, maybe I would say maybe like a little cheat here and there of, like I remember, and I thought my college coach was crazy at the time, but like he'd be like, I want you guys to focus on the split of this wide receiver in this formation, because if they do this, then it's the likelihood of them running this play is X amount of %. And that's the kind of stuff that I think Duke gets into and that they're very good at is like I said, knowing your alignments, knowing what personnel you're in and what you're trying to accomplish. And so they're kind of not a step ahead of you, but they kind of are in some instance. And that makes up for maybe their lack of athleticism or speed more so on the backhand, because if you know where you're going, where you need to be, it's almost better than being the fastest guy on the field, because if you can't read and you can't, look at things pre-snap, then there's no real reason to being fast. I think that's the main thing with Jalen Sneed right now, if we're being 100% honest with everyone.
It's the first thing that I was thinking of when you started talking about that, quite honestly.
And so that is what Duke is going to do defensively, is they know what they need to be in the position in the field. And so they might get there a little bit earlier. And I think that helps them in terms of turnovers. But in this game specifically, it's not going to matter, because Notre Dame is going to be on them, and they're going to be on them fast. And I think they're going to be able to run the ball very effectively. And they're just going to punish Duke with their run game. And I don't think Duke's going to have any sort of response, because I think they're undersized and they're they don't have enough speed in terms of their box players defensively. So, and then on the other hand, offensively, Riley Leonard is like 75% of their offense. If you shut down Riley Leonard, that's to me, that's it. Riley Leonard is a catch the ball. He's a 1-2 step drop quarterback. And if his read isn't there, he's going to tuck it down and he's going to run. And so if you press those wide receivers off the line of scrimmage, you make him make a decision now, it's going to be a long game for Riley Leonard.
Wow, you're all over there. I thought we were talking defense. Now we're talking offense. I don't know what's happening. There's a lot going on.
It's the opponent preview. We were talking about the entire opponent.
Take a breath every now and then. I mean, seriously.
No kidding. Let some of us talk here. No, just kidding. No, you make a lot of good points there, obviously. And it's funny to me that, yes, the defense is very, very good, right? They're a good defense. They gave Clemson everything they could handle. They're the number 47 pass efficiency defense. Okay, that's cool. But you know who has the number 5 pass efficiency offense in the country? Notre Dame. And that hasn't been the case for a really long time. Okay, so I don't really care what their pass efficiency defense is. Notre Dame's going to do really whatever they want. And I'll piggyback off of what Jesse said. They're going to have a tough time stopping Notre Dame's run game because they're bottom half. Well, yeah, they're bottom half.
Clemson's the best team they played. Now, granted, Notre Dame has at least played moderately. Obviously Ohio State is better than any team.
Correct.
Duke has played.
Correct.
And NC State is at least in the conversation with just as good as Clemson right now, just the way the two teams have played. So
correct.
So Notre Dame has played better competition overall. Like when you look at those stat comparisons and those kind of
absolutely things. And look, Duke is bottom half in run defense. They're 47 in pass efficiency. Therefore, Notre Dame's offense is going to do whatever they want to Duke's defense. Agree on that one. And Clemson has the number 54 pass efficiency offense. Okay, so that's the best offense passing wise that Duke has faced so far. It's a big difference. That's a 50 slot difference between Clemson and Notre Dame. Like, this is a whole other planet of offense that they're going to have to face. And they made Clemson look pedestrian. There's no doubt about it. But it's because they are. So I have a lot of respect for Mike Elko. I have a lot of respect for his defense. But this is apples to oranges, man. Notre Dame's going to do just fine.
And when you look at Riley Leonard, as Jesse said, he's kind of one read, two read. If it's not there, it's tuck it and run quite often. And, he had a big game against Clemson. He also only completed 51% of his passes against Clemson. He's 67% for the season, but it's also not a downfield offense. They only average 11.9 yards per catch. So it's in the like when you compare who Notre Dame's secondary went up against last week compared to who they're going to see this week, again, like the gap is wide. It's Grand Canyon wide.
I would make those Duke wide receivers prove they can get off the line of scrimmage. Like that's just where I'm at, because when they throw quick plays and they're only 10 yards down the field, well, jam them off and don't let them get down, don't let them get off the line of scrimmage. And so I think you'll see a lot of that.
Yeah. Use your corners to your advantage, man. Like, I think after last week, Notre Dame has proved arguably they've got the best corner tandem in the country.
Yep.
Use those guys to your advantage, man. Like, beat the crap out of these receivers on the line.
Exactly.
I completely agree with that. Put them on an island. Put those guys on an island. They'll be fine. They've got their shovel and their castle building materials. Like, put them on an island.
I'd be running cover one man the whole time.
Yes.
Give him one safety, and that's it.
100%. All night long. And I would just be coming after Riley Leonard and making him wish he didn't suit up.
Yep. Make him make a decision and collapse that pocket immediately.
Yep.
Guys, one question for you.
I love these questions.
Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go. It's game day rapid fire, baby. Let's go.
Right. Is the Ohio State game proof that the gap is closing in Notre Dame's post-Brian Kelly era?
I'd like to take the lead on this one, Vince.
You go.
I will say, so there's two ways.
Scale of 1 to 10.
Oh boy, are we going to play the fence here again?
No, we're not playing the fence here.
In
terms of outcomes, I've seen these type of outcomes before. I've seen the close losses to teams, right? That's the part where I don't think the gap has shrunk. But when we're talking about the players on the field and the talent on the field and what that means for shrinking that gap in the future, I 100% agree, because I think that Marcus Freeman has a different and better product on the field than Brian Kelly ever did. And the guys that are doing that are Flores, Greathouse, Jeremiah Love, guys who never would have sniffed the field under Brian Kelly's regime. And so in that regard, I do think so. But again, Marcus Freeman hasn't won that big game yet, right? He's lost a couple of the big ones, and we saw that over and over again with Brian Kelly. So I don't think anything has really changed in that outcome yet. But I think the way that this team plays and the way that they produce on the field is different than teams Brian Kelly has. And so I think that's going to lead to more success down the road.
Okay.
My initial thought on this was no. The Ohio State game is not proof that the gap is closing, because Brian Kelly came real close to beating really good teams. He did.
Georgia
twice. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he beat Oklahoma on the road, right? I mean, there were certain games that he was close. The difference is, and I'm refining my answer because of what Jesse just said. They were close in those games against Georgia. Did you ever, and this is not a rhetorical question, did you ever feel in those Georgia games like Notre Dame was going to win those games?
No, they were just trying to keep up.
I didn't feel like they were definitely. I felt like they maybe, yeah. I think like they had a chance, but
like if Georgia did something stupid, and let the door open, then Notre Dame could win.
Notre Dame needed to play a perfect game, and that was the difference. And
the other team had to really mess up, right?
Yes.
I mean that was always how I felt going into like those games under Brian Kelly led teams. This one was different. Notre Dame should have won that game, and I don't care who gets pissed off because I said that. That's fine. They were winning the game until 3 seconds to go. Okay. They should have won that game. They played better than Ohio State. They lost because they didn't play better down the stretch. Okay. Ohio State's a better team. They won. That's fine. That's fine. But Notre Dame should have won that game. I never felt that way under Brian Kelly. So that's the difference. So if we're talking about that game in particular, then I do feel like they're closing the gap. I do. But they still got to win it. But they are closing the gap.
Yeah, I agree with Jesse's line of thinking. I mean, that's basically kind of the way I look at it is close doesn't matter. Did you win the game or not? They were close under Brian Kelly. It was, in these regular season games against these elite teams. And they even won some of those games. They beat Clemson a couple of times. They beat Clemson with Marcus Freeman last year. They beat number one Clemson,
Oklahoma,
with Brian Kelly a few years ago. Oklahoma, they beat Michigan in a ranked matchup a few years back. So it's not like they never won games against good teams or played close against the elite teams under Brian Kelly. But what Jesse said, like you could see, especially from a skill position standpoint, Notre Dame is toe-to-toe,
baby,
with elite wide receiver guys who are going to all be playing in the NFL on the other
with
side.
The best wide receiver room in the country.
Who played
right.
best in those games? The young guys, Benjamin Morrison.
Yeah.
Jeremiah
Cam Hart
Love,
did as well. He's
Rico
old,
Flores. Right. But
yeah.
I'm saying, like, when you
but you're going
look
to
at
plug
it,
Christian Gray in there next year when Cam
Right.
Hart is gone, and I don't think you're going to miss a beat, really. I think it's good, and then you're going to plug Jaden Mickey in when somebody, and you've got, I think there's like a cat outside my house.
Is that what? I was wondering where that was coming from.
It's my
Oh,
cat.
it's your cat? I was wondering where that. Okay. Man,
Sorry,
what is
everyone else
going
is
on
upstairs right now, and I'm down here, and the cat
That
is
is
pissed
funny.
because they can hear everyone upstairs. So
There's a noticeable difference in the skill position talent that Notre Dame has right now, and it's only going to continue to get better in each of the next few years as these recruiting cycles continue to take off. So no, I don't think Ohio State is proof that the gap is closed based on result, but based on the players that they've got.
Right.
Notre Dame is going to start
Outlook.
winning these kind of games in the very near future.
And I'm very confident that that's the case. Like, that's not like a rose-colored glasses approach. Like, I'm very confident based on the recruiting classes, the mentality, the coaches that are on the staff, like all of those things equal gap closing.
Right. Everyone takes responsibility now because the head coach takes responsibility.
It's amazing how that works. You know what that's called, Jesse?
Accountability.
Leadership.
Or leadership. Okay.
Trickle-down effect.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. The biggest current question you have about Notre Dame football is blank.
This one's a hard one because, you know what? My biggest question mark is, can Notre Dame stop a team on a final drive of a game to win it? That's my biggest question. Can they stop them on a final drive in a one-possession game to win the game? Because they haven't done it yet under Marcus Freeman.
See, Vince took the easy answer. Can they finish games? Can they close out games? That's
well, here's mine. Let me give mine because it's close to Vince, because I know you're going to want to filibuster once you decide you're going to talk there, Jesse. So I'll just give mine, and I'll say, can the defense get stops when they need to get stops? Whether it's the end of the game, get off the field on third down, can the defense get stops when they need to get stops? That's the biggest question, because statistically across the board, it's a really good defense, but can they get off the field when it's time to get off the field?
Yep.
So you guys, I can't repeat what you guys are saying. I anticipated these lame responses, and so I came up with one myself that was out of the box.
Shots fired.
My biggest question for this team is, or the biggest current question I have about this team is, can the offense produce in the crunch time, short yardage situations? That's the one for me. I don't feel like they figured out their identity on those 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s, 4th and 1, 4th and 2. It's one thing to know that you want to go for it and you're going to continue to go for it, but how are you doing it? How are you successfully converting? What are you doing to think out of the box?
Are you going to use your sledgehammer or not?
Yeah, exactly. Are you going to overthink
use your
it
sledgehammer or have him standing on the sidelines?
Yeah. And so that's, to me, like that, because that's ultimately what decided that game to me against Ohio State, is they just left so many drives unfinished because they just didn't have, like, they're so good on the first 7 to 8 yards, but they're not good in those last 1 to 2 yards. So that's for me on offense. How are they finishing out drives and continuing to churn out first downs in the high leverage situations?
Yard when you have to get a yard.
Yes.
It's the drives that matter.
Yes, exactly. The high leverage drives.
Yeah. Is there going to be a drive that matters in this game, Jesse?
No.
Okay. Just checking.
There might be against Louisville next week.
I'm actually more afraid for Louisville.
You're afraid for Louisville, or you're afraid of Louisville?
No, I'm afraid for Louisville.
Okay.
Not of.
Yeah,
they're at least a little bit more dynamic, like when we talk about dynamic, their quarterback is a little bit more of a statue, but still, we'll save that for next week.
We'll be in bourbon country too, baby. Those fans are something different.
Ooh, yes.
Put away the women and children. We're coming to burn the house down.
Speaking of Louisville, we found out this week that it's going to be a 7:30 kickoff, which means 4 consecutive primetime games. I just realized I wrote this question out and I didn't even put a question on it. What's your concern? Any concern with 4 straight primetime games? 7:30 kickoff.
Just overall fatigue.
Beyond us.
Of us.
I'll tell you what, man, it's Thursday and I still haven't recovered from last Saturday
I'm exhausted.
Night.
I'm exhausted. Sean Stiers.
See,
I want to go to bed.
Luckily, like unlike you guys, I just turned my phone off and went to bed right after that game. I disconnected, baby.
Good lucky you.
Wish we could have.
Lucky you. I was in bed at 3, so
yeah.
You know,
I'm sure you got a couple cocktails in you as well that helped you fall asleep.
Yeah.
Nope. I was all of straight conscious mind the entire game. I couldn't be clouded.
Well, I don't worry about it because I think the coaching staff does a good job of the way they set things up and the way they do things and all of that. So I'm not worried about it. It's just you go to Notre Dame and you expect to play some afternoon games. You know what I mean? 4 straight night games is not what you sign up for. Now, these kids like playing under the lights, man. They like playing in the prime time games, and I get it. And they probably get a little bit more hype for it. And that's great.
Juice.
There's going to be more juice in the stands for these 2 away games when they're at night. And so that's cool. And that's all fantastic. I am not obviously a fan, and it's not all about me, but I'm not a fan, but I'm not worried about the team. I think they'll handle it just fine. Although Marcus Freeman was clearly not happy about it. Which
you know what I say? Marcus Freeman, not a fan either, based on.
Well, that's because he's in his upper 30s and he wants to get some sleep too. And you know, here's the difference though. It's the aftermath of the game, right? It's not necessarily the game itself and being late. It's the aftermath because they finished up the game and they get right on a plane and they come back and they get home at like 3 or 4.
They're going to get home at 3 a.m.
Like that part stinks, man.
Yeah.
And that part absolutely stinks. So it's the recovery from that. It's all of that part. So I don't think it affects the game itself. But then you got to recover and you got to do all these different things that you don't normally have to do after a night game during the week. I think that's the problem.
So Vince, he took a lot of my ammunition there. I don't think it has any realistic effect on the games themselves. I think you just kind of said that. The only thing I would be concerned about, and this more so falls on the duties of the head coach, and they'll get it figured out. There'll be a master schedule, and it'll all be fine. But Vince, you talked about it. It's getting home and not going to. Not only do these guys, when the game's over, their bodies are exhausted, they're exhausted, mentally exhausted, but then you're still running off fumes of adrenaline, and so even that is keeping you up hours through the evening, right? And so
sleeping on the plane.
That was my Saturday night / Sunday morning when I got home from the game the other night.
Right.
Yeah. And so everything running through you.
We're not getting on a plane, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like that's the part that's only a little bit worrisome is because now you're getting into, to me, it's a compounding effect of what that could have looked like, 3-4 weeks down the road, because these first couple of weeks, it's going to be nothing. These guys are young, they stay up late, right? Like it's nothing to them. And they've been playing football their whole life. But when we're talking in, a USC and it's the 4th time, and I just don't want injuries to compound because of recovery time that's compromised because you're getting home at 3-4 in the morning. But Notre Dame has a great training staff. They'll Sunday they'll be probably all those guys will be in the training room. And I talked about this earlier the week too, is like it just kind of compromises practice potentially too, because is everyone fully recovered and ready for practice on Monday, right? So are you getting the full amount out of practice?
There is no practice on Monday.
Yeah, they practice Sundays, Jess.
No, they don't practice on Sundays anymore. Remember,
I thought they did.
The schedule. No.
Oh, so they give them 2 days off? Oh, okay.
Monday is more like you get. It's not necessarily a practice day, but it is. Like I think it's
treatment day,
film and treatment and those kind of things.
Gotcha. It's like Saturday mornings for high school.
Right. Sunday is the day off. Monday
okay.
is you get into the film and.
I just remember last year they were practicing on Sundays,
and then it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah. They switched it up.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's the only thing is I just don't want recovery time and practice time potentially compromised, down the road, I guess is what I'm saying. Because that's the thing is in the first couple of weeks, it's not going to matter. But when you're compounding and losing time, and now, 4 weeks down the road, you've maybe lost a full day or 2 days of recovery because of all the time that's compounded before it.
Yeah. And I'm sure they'll figure out a way, They'll adjust. Probably do kind of what they talked about after coming back from Ireland. They can figure out, if they're going into the fourth game, the USC week, maybe some ways that they can, maybe we don't need this individual period. We can take it a little bit lighter, those kind of things. And at the very least, they'll be able to get into a rhythm since they'll have the same schedule for the most part.
That's true. For a month. I mean, they're going to have the exact same schedule for a month. And then they have a bye, right? So
yeah, exactly.
that bye week is looking awfully good after 4 night games, isn't it?
Seriously. So do you buy or sell Notre Dame wearing green uniforms more regularly?
This is a sell for me. I think that you go with the green uniforms once, maximum twice per season, and you're very selective about when you wear them, aka Ohio State and USC. I don't mind wearing them for the big games and the night games and whatever it might be. Don't pull out a green uniform for a day game against Pitt. Like, let's strategically think about when we're going to wear these uniforms. I think that's the only thing for me, but I think there is such thing as watering it down or becoming too saturated. So I'm a maximum of 2 times per year.
So in other words, yes, because they've never done it twice in a year. I don't believe.
Yeah, so the answer is still yes, but don't overdo it.
And that's fair. I'm on board with that. Like, you want to make it like their alternate uniform or something like that for big games. Like, okay, I'm cool. Like, I think Clemson wears purple pants or something for big games. Like, if those want to be your big game jerseys, all right. I don't want them to oversaturate it. And frankly, I'm sick and tired of hearing about they're always losing the green jerseys, which clearly is not true. But no matter how many times you tell somebody that, they don't believe you. And now we have empirical evidence that they lost in a green jersey. So that's all anybody's going to remember.
Right.
I hate that conversation, but I do like the green jerseys. So once or twice a year, I'm cool with it.
I like the way that they've done it the last couple of years. They've announced it before the season started. This is going to be the green game. It's not
make it a whole
surprise.
Everyone stops
thing.
asking about it.
Right.
When are they going to wear them? Why aren't they wearing them?
I heard, one of the national guys this week, oh, what are you wearing the green for? Like you're treating this like you're an underdog. No, they announced it several months in advance. It wasn't like some surprise thing. Everybody knew they were going to wear the green. It's been a thing. And I like doing it like that. And I like the one green game like that. Personally, I would like to see them, as opposed to putting the names on the jerseys for the bowl game, I would like to see them wear green during the bowl game as well.
Ooh.
Like that be their second time. Like that's the thing. Instead of the names, you wear green in the bowl game.
I get down with that.
Yeah, I could definitely get down because that's a special game, right?
That's what I mean. They're special occasion uniforms.
And can't they do both, Sean? Can't they go green and names?
They could. They very well
did. They did last year, remember?
What about white jerseys with green names and green letters?
They were hard to see, though. The names on the green were hard to see. So, but they could do both. That's a fair point. So, guys, is the Lou Holtz versus Ryan Day the rivalry that we didn't know we needed?
I was going to let you lead off on this one.
All right, I'll
take it.
All
right. Yes, it's the rivalry we never knew we needed. Yes, I love it because every time Ryan Day opens his mouth, he sounds like a moron, and it's fantastic. He just sounds dumber and dumber each time. And people, from experience, when something's going on that's not good for you, shut up. Just stop talking. It goes away. But no, you gotta keep going, and the spotlight's still gonna be on you, and you're picking on an 86-year-old man. And the person that has made the best points so far in this back and forth is the 86-year-old man. And it makes you look even dumber. So bring it on, baby. I love it.
So I'm going to go with the simple answer here is I'm going to say yeah, too, because like Vin said, it just makes Ryan Day look dumber and dumber every time he just goes into this thing and responds to it more. Like, just this whole thing to me has just given me such a clarity and insight of who Ryan Day is and what his insecurities are as a head coach. And it's very obvious. And it was funny. I was reading a tweet this morning at work, and some guy tweeted that it's funny because Lou Holtz, the only reason that this is a thing is because Lou Holtz is bitter that Ohio State didn't take him back, that he couldn't be a head coach there or something. I was like, how self-absorbent are you people? You just think everyone wants to be at Ohio State and that everything revolves
on his own
around
accord.
Ohio State. Yeah, exactly. And so I was just like, the more that this goes on, the more I feel better about how stupid their head coach and fan base is altogether.
This is just like a pro wrestling thing, like Ryan Day came out of the chute, and like if you go back and you watch the NBC thing at the end, Jerry Emig, their SID, is on the field before the interview starts, and he tells Ryan Day to take a breath, and Day turns to him and he goes, "Watch this." And it's like the whole thing was just a big put on, is all it was. It was like Ryan Day's heel turn. I'm going to come off the top rope and I'm going to go crazy, and I'm going to show you what I can be here. Oh, I'm the macho man, and like, here's Lou Holtz, little old Lou Holtz. He's like the pro wrestling manager coming in out, and he's got his cane. Not that he literally has one, but he's got his cane, and he's like poking at Ryan Day with the cane. And it's like the fact that Lou Holtz, not knowing what the questions were going to be in that interview, he recited all 6 of Ryan Day's losses off the top of his head and talk about how he got pummeled in the running game, and his team got pummeled in the running game all 6 times, And so like,
and Ryan Day couldn't even recite what halves of football he stunk at.
That's exactly right. He's trying to claim it was just 1/2.
Right.
What? And it's just beautiful, because like, not only did, Lou Holtz said he called Marcus Freeman and apologized. That's great. But he just came right back, loaded up his shotgun, and came right back at Ryan Day again. I just think it's awesome. And I'm really, it's kind of sad that these teams aren't going to play again for who knows how long, unless they end up meeting in a bowl game, because I love to see Lou come at Ryan Day. I
want Lou Holtz to flip the coin. I want him to be front and center on the whole thing. This is, I really, really wish Notre Dame would have won that game. Now, if they would have won, Ryan Day wouldn't have spouted his mouth off. But It reminds me very similar. It reminds me of the Bob Barker, Adam Sandler, fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where Bob Barker just beats the crap out of Adam Sandler, and Adam Sandler just keeps getting back up for more.
I like that one.
Like, that's what it reminds me of. And it's going to continue reminding me of that as long as Ryan Day keeps chatting.
Yep. Perfect. So USC's at Colorado this weekend. Over under 1/4. The game stays competitive.
I'm going to take the over. I think that Oregon and USC's offensive firepower is very similar. I think Colorado's going to have a hard time, slowing down USC. But the difference to me is USC is kind of putrid on defense, and I think they'll have a better chance of scoring and maybe keeping it, maybe winning a quarter or 2 here or there. But I just think that the outcome is going to be much closer because USC is not nearly as good on defense.
I want to say under, because Ohio State's offense is Ohio State, wow. USC's offense is so good, and I don't think Colorado's defense is very good at all. And so I think they're just going to score every time they touch the ball. The difference is going to be, can Colorado match score for score at all at the beginning of the game? I don't think that they can, but like, what's your definition of a game? You know what I mean? Is it 2 scores? Is it 1 score? If it's more than 2 scores, then they'll keep it a game and over a quarter, but it's not going to be a realistic game. Like, it's going to be very obvious to everybody watching that game is over after 1.
I don't know.
I don't agree with that one.
Yeah, I'm going to go over a quarter, that it stays competitive. I do think Colorado is going to score. I do have some concerns about USC after coming home from the game last Saturday night and watching them struggle against Drew Pine and Arizona State. I think Colorado can score. They're not going to be able to stop Caleb Williams, but I do think Colorado will at least score on USC. So I think it'll be, like maybe even a 10-point game at halftime. I think USC ends up winning by at least a couple of touchdowns. I don't know that they end up covering the full, what is it, like 21.5 or something like that going into this one.
I'm more interested in that over under, whatever it is.
What is the over under? Do you know?
Let me look.
I don't have my phone here with me right now.
Stand by.
Take the over.
Yeah, I think both teams could get into the 40s.
I don't see Colorado scoring 40.
I see them scoring at least 30. I see them.
They looked absolutely inept offensively last week.
Well, Oregon's got a better defense than
I know,
USC
but they
is
just
gonna
look,
have.
they couldn't figure anything out offensively. Like
Yeah.
that was now maybe that was some of that was self-induced, or was induced by Oregon. I get that, but man, did they look
73
bad.
and a half on the over and under.
73 and a half.
That is
That's a
high.
lot
That's
of
a big
points.
number.
I mean, it's a lot, but if you guys are both thinking that USC is going to score 40, and if you think
Like a
Colorado's
40
going to get in the 30s,
A 40-30 game is right there.
yes, I'm saying I would take the under on that one.
I'm trying to see.
don't
I need to go back because we sent in our predictions, and that was one of the game that we had to pick. I've got 77 total points
Wow.
being scored. Now that's just my pick, but that's what I've got. So
I have 55.
okay.
Man, I mean,
I said 45-32. 45-32 is my final prediction. USC winning.
45.
that has only not hit in like one USC game this year.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go.
And the only one was USC Stanford, and it was still 56-10.
All right. Speaking of props, how about some game props? Notre Dame
Oh, my favorite.
minus
time.
5.5, and the over under on this Notre Dame Duke game 51.5 points. What do you guys think?
I would say in terms of spread, I'm definitely taking 5.5, and I would comfortably take this all the way up to 12.5. To be honest with everyone, I'm definitely going to tease 9.5, and I'm going to tease 12.5 as well. So
Okay.
that's where I'm at on the spread. Over under wise, what always makes over unders hard for me is like Notre Dame's defense, man. Like if Notre Dame, they could potentially see Duke scoring 14 points, and that means Notre Dame's got to lift the legs and do the legwork and score 37 more of the other points. And so I don't know. I don't mess with over unders, but I'm just going to take with the under on this one because I just don't think Duke's going to score enough.
Short and sweet. I'm with Jesse. I think that 5.5 number is way too low, and so I would easily take Notre Dame minus the points. And I'm going to take the under because I do think Al Golden's defense is going to come out, and they're not going to pitch a shutout, but it'll be darn close. So I don't see Notre Dame scoring 45. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to say that's under.
exactly it. How much is Notre Dame actually going to be able to score? I've got the under as well, and Notre Dame minus 5.5 seems like a pretty easy pick.
Yes, it does.
We all picked the wrong way
Let's
last
all
week.
make some money.
Sam Hartman, over under 243.5 passing yards and 1.5 touchdown passes.
I'll go over on the passing touchdowns, and I will go under on the 243. I just think they get nearly 250 to 300 on the ground by the end of the day.
I agree.
47th pass efficiency defense. I'm taking the over on passing. I'm taking the over on passing touchdowns.
Number 65, though, or 68, one of those in rushing defense, which is like I tend to
Both
agree
of
with
you
what
are number
Jesse
one
said.
in my heart.
Hey, listen. Sam Hartman is as human as the rest of us. He has heard the chirping about how ineffective he was in the last game. He's going to come out firing.
And I mean, it wasn't even chirping. He heard it directly from someone from the media right after the game. So
you're not wrong. Yeah. By the way, I had somebody come up to me about that as well, and they're like, "Yeah, you guys nailed that one." It's like, yeah, we did.
We try. We do try.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree. So I'm going under on the passing yards, over 1.5 touchdown passes. Riley Leonard, over under 204.5 yards and also 1.5 touchdown passes. I find it funny that he's got an over under of 1.5 touchdown passes when he has 2 touchdown passes all season.
Thank you for bringing that up, because now that is an added leg in my parlay.
The passing yards, I don't see him getting to 204.5 passing yards either. Do either of you?
I think these are both unders.
I think they're going to throw the ball a ton because they're going to be down by so much. So I am going to take the over on the passing yards, but I am going to take the under on the touchdowns.
I need to add that now so I don't forget. That is such a good leg.
Chris Tyree, 34.5 receiving yards.
Man, anytime these Tyree ones are in the 30s, I'm going to take it every time because that's one play for him.
Yep, me too. Easy.
Yep. I concur. And especially when you're not going to have Jaden Thomas out there, should be more opportunities for. And like you said, really all it's going to take is one completion to Chris Tyree, and he's going to be right around that number with just that one. Audric Estime, 92.5 rushing yards, and he's got minus 210 odds to be an anytime touchdown scorer.
You might as well take him 100+ and a touchdown and get you some good money for the weekend, because that boy's running with some vengeance too.
Yep. Agreed on both.
Jordan Waters, the Duke running back, 42.5 yards, and he's got minus 110 odds to score.
I don't like him scoring, and 40 is such a low number, Vince. Like you talked about garbage time passing yards, garbage time rushing yards are definitely in there for me as well. So I wouldn't come close to this one, but I guess I would have to take the over just because of potential garbage time yards.
I would take the under because if it's garbage time, he's not going to be in.
Air that bad boy out. I see what you're saying. You're not going to catch up running the ball.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And I don't think Notre Dame's going to give him an inch running the ball. I really don't. I mean, one thing that Notre Dame's been really good at is run stuffing. And they've been really, really good at that defensively, obviously outside of
one play,
the big run against Ohio State, but other than that run, and I hate when people say this, like if you take away that big run.
But I mean, it was like 60 yards on the other 20-some carries or whatever it was.
I mean, they shut down Ohio State's run game. Shut it down. And Ohio State's run game is way better than Duke's.
Yep. All right. Game prediction time. What do you boys got?
Vince, lead us off.
Oh, so now I got to pull it up because I don't want to be different. Okay, so I think Notre Dame, like I said earlier, I think they are going to smell blood in the water. I think Marcus Freeman has these guys just chomping at the bit to come out and just do damage to Duke. So I've got Notre Dame winning pretty handily in this game. And so I've got Notre Dame 41, Duke 17.
I like that. I'm very close to that number. I had Duke at 10. I think they get a little touchdown, get a little field goal. They feel good about themselves and a little blowout. But where Notre Dame stands, I play a tough game here because I'm like, how many passing touchdowns? How many rushing touchdowns are we feeling? I think they get 2 in the air. They get 3 on the ground. So that puts us at a solid 35.
I keep forgetting my score prediction because you keep yakking so much.
And then Schrader gets himself in there. I got a 30. You know what, Vince? You took my number. I was going to try to be different, but I think it's 41-10.
Okay, I have 2 field goals in there. By the way, 5 touchdowns, 2 field goals.
That's what I got.
The only thing that can keep this game close, again, it comes back to Duke and their propensity for causing turnovers. That's the only thing that makes this thing a close game and could make it a threat. I've got Notre Dame winning 30-17. I just can't decide, exactly how many points they're going to get. Like between 30 and 40 is
that's
kind
where
of what
I fell.
I lean, and even the 17 might be a little bit much, but I think we all had 17 for NC State, and then they, it should have been 17, and they ended up scoring 24. So it probably should be 10 or 13, and that's kind of why I hedged towards 17 a little bit. I think it's a little bit above, what I think that they'll do, but I think it'll be a pretty handy victory for Notre Dame as they bounce back this week.
Yep, not going to be close.
No. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up. We will see how things play out. Of course, don't forget the post-game show coming up after the game upon further review. I don't know when exactly that'll come out over the weekend. Sometimes
usually Sunday at 8 o'clock, but we'll see how things go.
It's been Monday a couple times.
It has.
And then, of course, we'll be back with IB Nation Sports Talk on Monday. So we will talk to you then. For Vince and Jesse, I'm Sean. IB Countdown.